Hello there, fine folks. Nice to have you all along again for this another episode of 100 Casts. I believe we are coasting well and straight into 74? 74, yes. I think we're going to be hitting 74 with this one. And that means we only got 26 left to go. 75 is going to put us at 25 left to go. That'll be quite a milestone, as this series has been longer running than I initially anticipated at the very least. But all that aside, let's take a look at some of the matchups that we've got on Summoner's Rift for us here today. In the mid lane, we will be having WCW Meteor playing off against Saljwang B. I'm going to use that 5 as an S. Otherwise that name is going to be far too weighty and awkward to pronounce during play-by-play situations. So we do have a, more importantly, the champion matchup, Lux versus Talon. Interesting one there. Lux comes out decently far ahead, actually, in the early game, but Talon does have the potential to come back in the lane out of a somewhat difficult laning phase, in that he has the capacity to absolutely blow up a Lux if she steps even a hair out of position. So it's going to be a tango with death back and forth between these two. As we see, the first blow's already struck, and some of the other lanes, let's swap down to the bottom side where we do see both junglers. Actually, no, pardon me, not both, I speak too soon. Logic's on Echo starting on that side, whereas on the inside we do have Master Yi starting at the Gromp camp, going right to the blue. Ooh, nice binding on Ace 202. And Misty Fortune and Vermilion Bites, showing their range advantage on the bottom side, gets some good poke down onto the Vayne. That Rake currently doing a lot more damage than Lucent Singularity does, as WCW looks to push for the early level 2. Another good binding onto Slaberham Lincoln, who is rocking one of the best names I have seen recently. Meanwhile, on top side, we do have a Kale versus Maokai lane. Adderall actually hitting the early level 2 is going to do a bit of damage. But it looks like Kaijo gets that level spike as well. And there's Meteor getting hit up by the light binding. Zhuang doing some good damage here, as Meteor had the, I'd say, level 1 advantage with Rake, just because the base damage and mana cost is higher and lower respectively. But after that point, with the ranged auto attacks coming into play, as well as just multiple procs of Lux's passive, I'm going to have to give the early game over to Lux. Oddly enough, speaking of lanes that are behaving strangely for the matchup, we do have Vayne actually shoving in here, something you don't often see a Vayne do early on. She does have some of the weakest lane presence of any of the AD carries, but Ezreal is right down with her there at the bottom of the chart in terms of ability to exercise presence in a lane. Speaking of exercising presence, Logic's now up on the top side. He's going to toss out a Time Winder to continue the slow here into Kaijo, the red buff burning, but it won't be enough. As Misty Fortune is walking forward for what seemed to be a guaranteed binding, but Slaberham Lincoln predicted it and juked. Juked by not really running, that is. Turned backwards and went a bit slower than the opposition might have anticipated, as Logix gets his base interrupted by Kaijo, who's going to make him pay for inconvenience, with inconvenience returned in kind. And then return to some farming here, happily tanking away a few more auto attacks from Arterail. This is a very, very healthy looking tree. Ooh, Meteor so very low, does flash out of the Lucent Singularity, but around the corner we have another flash burn, as the first blood goes over to the Master Yi, diving behind the outer turret, rather, to pick up first blood. Hoot de Flute's going to be very happy with that, as Master Yi with an early game lead is a scary, scary Master Yi. That's not where he's meant to be powerful, and if you can cover that gap in Master Yi's power spike by picking up a few kills, first blood, things like that, it can go a long way towards helping you scale into the later game. Zhuang might be in some trouble. No, Logix gets bound right outside of the parallel convergence, and so won't get the stun back onto Zhuang. But he's still coming in. There's the phase dive. Secondary half connects. He has a red buff to burn here onto Zhuang. Time Warner flies out, but the damage just isn't quite there, and both mid laners will just about escape. Meteor getting bound around the corner. The raid comes through, but it doesn't have enough damage. And Meteor thinking this Lux to be too far away to continue the chase, is going to wander back to the mid lane and push out some minions. Oh my god, that got so very close. I was on the edge of my seat for that Lux there. She just about escapes with her life. Only maybe a dozen hit points remaining. Zillion bombs doing some good damage. Black Shield actually burned there. But, oh, Ace 202 is going to get hit by another binding. Misty Fortune has been on point with these. It's more than half of Vayne's health missing in action here. Vermilion Bites gets hit by one, but dodges out the secondary time bomb. And with no mana left, Abraham Lincoln's going to have a difficult time influencing this lane any further. Those Zillion auto attacks are not too scary, to be entirely fair. And yet we still see the lane pushing in towards blue, and we still see Vayne accruing a CS lead in her favor. Ace 202's pulling out a good lane despite some factors that really should be sending it in the other direction. We have fhtaghn, though, coming in to try and clean up this bottom side. Vermilion Bites will pick up the kill into Ace 202, who gets bursted away by fhtaghn early damage. Binding dodged rather nicely, actually, in the mid lane by Meteor, who cutthroats away to a minion to avoid that. Still a one trade for Zhuang, though, who is really flexing that early game Lux power in mid. But it's resulting in a lot of missing hit points for Meteor, but not missing CC. There's the final spark. Zhuang will pick up a kill, but is surely going to go down as Logic lands the parallel convergence. This time the stun connects. And a 1-for-1 in the mid lane is going to pick up the first kill on the board for a red team. Going over to their jungler. Arterail might be in some trouble. Kaijo's flanking around the side. Level 6 available for both, though. There's the Vengeful Maelstrom, answered back with Divine Intervention. And a little bit of damage from Kaijo will chase Arterail back from the minion wave. Kaijo's ulti a bit less valuable than Kale's, though, to be fair. Doesn't mean he comes out on top there. Logic's up on the top side, looking to apply some pressure for this Kale, who has had it pretty much in spades anyways, with a 10 CS lead here. But 10 CS is not enough to shut Maokai out of the game. He's going to be useful no matter what. And here comes Logic's around the corner. Parallel convergence drop where he knows Kaijo's going to be. There's the flash forced away. fhtaghn comes in, though, just after the stun potential wears off. Arterail going dangerously low, has to flash into the safety of his turret. And fhtaghn all over the map, this man. He's going to get some more work done in the top lane, burning a summoner. First time he's shown up somewhere and not secured a kill, but picking up a summoner, not a bad showing either. Meteor with the Tiamat completed is going to look for a trade here into Zhuang. He gets some good damage down, but doesn't quite pick up a kill or summoner. Nothing too significant burned. But these mid laners, as I said, are behaving very explosively, both playing with fire in mid. Lux able to catch out Talon and burst him down from a long distance, but if Meteor gets inside Zhuang's range of engagement, let's call it, and he has a pretty easy time of taking her out of the picture as well. As Ace 202 continues to push, he has a 10 CS lead on Vayne, despite the fact that this lane has otherwise not really gone in their favor. Misty Fortune going to get chunked away, not only by the Zillion Bombs, but also a third proc of Silver Bolts. And Abraham Lincoln and Ace 202 have had a well-played lane on the bottom side. The presence of fhtaghn earlier did give a kill over to this Ezreal. So Vermilion Bites is not exactly behind here, but Vayne's going to scale a bit harder than Ezreal. Ezreal is very good in the late game, especially blue build Ezreal, for reasons slightly different to Ace. Ace is going to be easier to kite, but harder to damage. Harder to deal with if he isn't kited correctly. Oh, Zhuang might be in some trouble. Meteor going to be coming on in. Doesn't pop into the ulti. Twilight Assault not available, as he's not quite got the mana for it. And around the corner, fhtaghn with Highlander already popped, is charging on in. There's the Lux ulti, followed up by an Alpha Strike. And fhtaghn will pick up another easy kill in the mid lane. He's cast 2 abilities there and taken home 2 kills. Those are the easiest kills of that man's life. Kaijo in a 1v1 with Arterail, who pops into the Divine Intervention. After Kaijo drops his own ulti, he didn't block quite enough damage with it, and that's going to be a kill going over to Kaijo. A bit of a misplay there from the Kale, who could have used that ulti a good amount more effectively had it been dropped maybe a little bit earlier to block the damage return from Vengeful Maelstrom. There's actually quite a bit of Maokai's damage in a 1v1 like that. That, as well as the percentage chunk damage that Twisting Advance can cause. Slaverham Lincoln, trying to get some vision control back in that Tri-Brush, is going to call his AD carry up to help him out. And they will finally take down the Pink Ward. But Vermilion Bites is getting bullied away here. This Ace-202 continues to hold 10 CS or more ahead. Doing quite a good job for himself, despite the 0-1 scoreline. Nice sidestep from Arturo on the Arcane Smash. Kaijo is in a rough spot there. One or two more KO auto attacks would bring him down. But that extra MR that Maokai got recently is going to be helping out a lot in this Kale matchup. Speaking of Kale, I would like to just note the fact that we have a Cole purchase on Arturo. Got that on his first base, or perhaps when he died, one or the other. Oftentimes the best time to pick it up, as it gives you time to still stack through it before mid-game team fights happen, but doesn't quite give you the early disadvantage that picking up it as a first item can incur. Million Bites took a big chunk of damage there from Ace-202, as I was speaking on that Cole. And we may see some aggression near the Dragon Pit as both teams are making moves towards it. Ace-202 caught out a little bit, but he has his team waiting in the wings. fhtaghn going to find Logix and immediately jump right on top of him. There's the Lux ulti coming through. Lands onto Ace-202. A lot of damage onto this Vayne. Already healed, burned across the wall. Here comes Ezreal ulti, but it won't quite do enough, as Ace-202 survives. Just about 100 hit points left, but both of his summoners burned to show for it. And really the only impactful cooldowns used were Ezreal and Master Yi ulti, neither one of which is too terribly long of a cooldown. And those Vayne summoner spells are so very important. It's also going to secure the dragon for blue side, so despite no kills going down in that particular engagement, blue still manages to pull ahead even further. And now we have fhtaghn looking to pick up the kills that he didn't manage to get earlier. Chrono Shift going to be popped for Slaverham Lincoln, but it leaves him sitting in a bad position. Ace-202 is using the free time to get some good damage into Vermilion Bites, but he turns back around. He picks up the kill on Zillion. Ace-202, though, diving towards the back line, will at least take home a kill in the enemy AD carry for his own death, and of course the death of his support. Now Logix coming into parallel convergence will drop a stun onto Zhuang, who is caught way out of position and very much dead. And Kaijo, knowing a lost cause when he sees one, is going to rush his way out of there before he too becomes fish food, I guess, given that it happened in a river. I don't really know. Fish don't, I don't think they eat trees. He would just kind of sadly rot in the river and eventually fall to pieces. I guess it would become algae food. Doesn't sound nearly as menacing. Algae don't have teeth. Oh no, Logix. Oh no. He plays the ward. Okay, so he phase dived over the back of the Baron Pit. That is a little, I just want to explain what happened there for anybody who didn't quite catch it. He phase dived over the back of the Baron Pit. And phase dive does have two components. When you initially tumble, and then you can do a little blink to something that you can basically extends your auto attack range, and you can blink to whatever it is that you auto attack. Million Bites actually going to get stunned up here by Slaverham Lincoln. And then expecting the phase dive to last a little longer. Do we have a fight going on down here? Vermilion Bites is sticking around way too long. He's going to get nearly stunned against the wall, but the stun didn't even need to be there. Ace-202 has the damage as he tumbles forward and takes home a kill against the turret. Oh, it's a disconnection. That was an odd play. That is unfortunate for Vermilion Bites. Hopefully we see him come back into the game soon. That is the nature of solo queue, though. I try to avoid disconnects in commentaries whenever possible. But hopefully it won't be too egregious. If he comes back quickly, it won't be anything more than just a kill. Misty Fortune forced to flash away as Ace-202 is getting a speed buff from Zillion, as well as his own passive doubled by Final Hour. There is absolutely no escaping that. That is a vengeful Vayne if I've ever seen one, hunting down a fallen angel. And Ace-202 will take him a double kill on bottom side, in part thanks to an overextended Morgana, and in part thanks to an unfortunate disconnect on the side of blue. Meteor tosses out a rake, but is starting to lose these trades with Zhuang. And fhtaghn actually gets stunned up during Highlander. Ace-202 though, oh no, fhtaghn dodged out the Condemn with the Alpha Strike, and he's going to easily clean up a double kill down in bottom lane here. Well played by fhtaghn, and a little bit poorly played by Ace-202, who wanted to get maximum damage out. I can see why he did it. Arturo, though, popping into the Divine Intervention is going to scare Kaijo away with the help of Logix. And I can really see why Vayne waited on that Condemn, because she wanted to get as much damage in as possible while this Master Yi was stunned, because fhtaghn is becoming an absolute monstrosity right now. This Master Yi is scaling hard, and is only going to get worse as the game goes on. And so he wanted to handle the Yi as much as possible and get as much damage in during the CC as he could. And so he waited as long as he could on the Condemn so that he didn't layer the CCs and didn't waste any time at all in which Master Yi would be unable to move. But he waited a little bit too long, and there was about a quarter-second window there while the bolt from Condemn was flying and after the secondary stun from the second bomb landing from Slaverham Lincoln wore off, during which Master Yi could Alpha Strike, and he was quick enough on the reflexes, quick enough with the button spam, I suppose, to be able to Alpha Strike out of it. A little bit unfortunate for Ace 202, which does get not only him, but also his support killed. You could call that greed, you could call that a miscalculation, one way or the other. It is a double kill for Master Yi. He's looking to pick up some more. Tumble forward from Ace 202. Oh no, he is so very dead here. Misty Fortune not only landing the binding, but also dropping the exhaust just for good measure. And now diving underneath the turret, fhtaghn is unstoppable, and for good reason. 5-0-4, Master Yi putting up a grand performance at only 17 minutes or so into the game. Rail again timing the kill a little bit late. Doesn't block out a ton of damage on top side, while Misty Fortune goes down, as we do see fhtaghn now in a 1v1 with Logix, but he's got an AD carry to back him up, so I suppose it's a 2v1 really. I misspoke there. Kaijo getting chased away on the top side. fhtaghn goes into the meditate. Logix not getting hit by the final spark. He's still surviving. This is Tank Echo at its finest. Phase dive forward, but he lost vision in the bush, but he picks up a kill as Ezreal Arcane shifts out of the bush and still within phase dive range will go down. Meanwhile, Zhuang comes in to clean up the long overdue kill onto Echo. Oh my god. Every single moment of that last little skirmish was so very, very tense, and at times potentially even silly. And we see the interaction of Fog of War there. That's what I love about League of Legends. Even the oldest and most mundane of mechanics can bring about some pretty wonderful and funny situations sometimes. Something as simple as Fog of War and a bush. Ace 202 shoving out the bottom side, looking to continue to extend that CS lead, which he has done magnificently so far this game, but not been so magnificent at keeping his KDA positive. 3 and 4, but it's a bit rough to do on Vayne when fhtaghn on that 6-0 Master Yi has been visiting quite often. Speaking of Master Yi, an interesting item choice here, Quicksilver Sash. It's not actually a ton of magic damage inside of red. Zhuang might be in trouble. Well, Zhuang is definitely in trouble. He's going to be coming out of that Zoni's Hourglass. Actually gets interrupted before he can finish the ult that would have traded a kill back 1-for-1. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, fhtaghn is flexing his muscles and taking home a double 8-0-5 legendary by 18 minutes. Master Yi is in absolute terror. As Kaijo puts his tail between his legs appropriately with that skin and runs away from Ardarail, who has turned on the Kale damage big time, having completed that Gnasher's Tooth. Second dragon in the game for Blue Team. A lot of the hopes for Red rest on Ace 202's shoulders being able to carry through the late game. But with Master Yi seemingly going in a tankier direction now, that may be even harder. Quicksilver Sash is an odd choice, honestly. But not a terrible one, I'd have to say. He's so powerful that the only way Red Team can really take him down now is to hard CC him and kill him. So being able to simply opt out of a single hard CC isn't a bad thing. Certainly quite powerful. It may be the right choice, it may not be. We'll have to see going forward. Blade Devourer, though, much more standard. Parallel Convergence not going to be landing. The stun or the slow, indeed. As Blue Team takes some turn in mid lane, Logix finds himself in a 1v1 with fhtaghn, and that is certainly not a matchup he can withstand for very long. fhtaghn is a legendary as Zhuang gets leapt on by Meteor. He gets the benefit of a zillion ulti to keep him alive out of all of that Lux Burst. Meanwhile, Kaijo does take home a kill into Ardarail with the help of his jungler, and Slaverham Lincoln shows up to take home the mid laner. Million Bytes getting spell shielded a little bit late. They'll still bring down Meteor. As Ace 202 shoves in the bottom lane. Given that he wasn't in any of the other fights and wasn't anywhere near them, that's pretty much the best he can do to try and equalize the gold a little bit, which is Something that they really desperately do need to do. The turret advantage with the dragon advantage, the kill advantage with the gold advantage. Blue team is sitting on a heaping mountain of advantages here. And I suppose they do have this Vayne as an ace up their sleeve, if you'll pardon the horrifying joke. But they've got to reveal it at some point. And Ace 202 is still building up to be the late game hyper carry that we all know in our hearts she has the potential to be. Moment of quiet falls across Summoner's Rift as both teams take stock of perhaps what next objective to go for. Rift Herald, having fallen here past the 20-minute mark, leaves Baron to take his place, which is a bit too powerful of an objective for either team to go for. Red simply does not have the resources to try and shut down any outer turrets, and Blue has already taken all three. So that leaves some picks, and it looks like Zhuang might be the target. As it's actually, once again, it's Abraham Lincoln who takes home the kill. A little bit unfortunate. fhtaghn, though, joining into the fight, is going to get his plans nixed by a divine intervention, but he still picks up one onto Zilean, still picks up a double onto Ace, and over off to the side will finally go down to Ardarails. Kale. That rhymes. Misty Fortune going to fall, though, on the side of Blue team, as Logic shows up a little bit late to the fight, but still willing to party. Oh, the beautifully placed Ezreal ulti from across the map will take home the kill onto Kale. There's the Chrono Break from Logix, though. He heals up enough that he can continue fighting here. And a messy skirmish in mid lane will actually end up with a 4-for-4 trade. But Vermilion Bites was in position not only to take home that well-placed Ezreal ulti, but also bring down a secondary turret, further increasing the gold lead for Blue team. And if it weren't for that, I'd actually say that was rather in favor of Red, because if you are behind, taking an even fight isn't a bad thing. It at least gets some more gold in your pocket without extending the enemy team's gold lead. But having lost that outer turret does mean that they are objectively falling further behind here. It's not as bad as it could be. The bleeding has lessened, but it has not yet stopped. And I'm not a doctor, but that sounds pretty bad. Zhuang is told to step right up, and it looks like he doesn't really want to. He instead turns into a golden statue, but he doesn't have long, as gold is not a very durable metal. And this Lux has got caught out a good few times in a row now. Seems to be the start to these fights, but the end of it may be just at the end of fhtagh's sword, and he's waiting out that chrono shift. It does finally drop, and that's a double kill, triple kill really, for fhtagh. As soon as I say double, he picks up a third. Makes me a liar. And Kaijo lathers on the pressure in top lane with another engagement onto Adderall. I've seen this story play out a good few times now. There's the divine intervention as we've come to expect it. Oh, Adderall actually makes it outside of the Vengeful Maelstrom before it drops. That's a good amount of damage dropped away in that trade. Kaijo finds himself sitting on a ward. Maybe he has some ward friends, though, because he was a bit hesitant to kill it. In the end, though, murder does come naturally to the angry tree man. But Blue team gets an opening in mid lane and takes it. Brings down another secondary turret. Kaijo's actually laying the pressure onto the final standing turret outside of Red team's base. If this goes down, they will be reduced to only inhibitor turrets, and of course the Nexus ones behind them. And it looks like they're determined to prevent that from happening. Kaijo going to be actually twist advancing away from a stun, but it won't be enough to save his life. However, it does buy a lot of time for his team to show up and do quite a bit of damage. Abraham Lincoln dropping the chrono shift on his own shoulders is still going to be going down, as fhtaghn is a force to be reckoned with here, but he does get reckoned. Stunned him against the turret. Ace 202 will take home one kill, take home another. Blade of the Ruin King pop to slow up Zhuang. Ace 202 tumbles into a binding, though. That is unfortunate. Loosen Singularity will slow him up a little bit further. But he wants to continue the chase. With that Vayne passive, he's gaining ground. Dodges out the light binding, gets slowed, but it doesn't really matter. There's a big burst of damage from the Lux passive, though. And Ace 202 gives up pursuit. And now maybe the hunter becomes the hunted. Yes, indeed. As 5Al Zhuang B. I'll use his full name there. Accomplishes his third kill of the match. And despite having been caught out a few times, as I've said, and maybe will be demonstrated to us once again, the Zhonya's popped as he lands the binding. Odd timing for that, as you usually don't want to take a little napsies during the fight when the enemy is CC'd. That's when you want to be doing all the damage. And then when they get to do their damage, you want to just call timeout. Perhaps a misuse of Zhonya's Hourglass there, but in the end it does at least delay the kill a bit, so the outer turret still does not fall. Red team 3 turrets behind, looking to be 3 dragons behind as well. I don't think they're looking to be, but they're about to be, one way or the other. As fhtaghn can absolutely shred that thing to the ground. Dead in a matter of seconds, quite literally. I suppose almost any amount of time is a matter of seconds, though, if you break it down to the smaller bits. Kaijo turns around, does some good damage to Arterail. But with Ace-202 following up behind, I don't think you can take this 2v1. But that is the nice thing about Maokai, you can nearly always walk away if you want to. Not much can stop him. And not really much can stop fhtaghn either. Has that Sata Devourer completed? Of course, probably finished that one off quite a while ago given his performance this match. Played the Rune King and a Yumu's to top it off. So it looks like he's not really going tanky. The Quicksilver Sash, only a backup plan if he does get caught by some CC, like we saw underneath that secondary turret dive on topside, actually. Getting condemned against the turret there. Very nicely placed by Ace-202. A bright light in the darkness that is this match for Red Team. Meteor going so low. Holy Lord. You just saw his life flash before his eyes, and he's not even the one playing Echo. Speaking of Echo, Phase Dive going to be going in onto this Lux. Gets some good damage down onto her before blue team really has any time to respond. Zhonya's Hourglass pop to buy a little bit of time, but Logix has plenty of time to spare. Another Zhonya's Hourglass. He's just waiting these out and giving up the kills to Arterail, it looks like. A good choice, honestly, as his Kale can scale harder into the late game than Logix can, but Kaijo is here to continue the fight, and with the backup damage from Vermilion Bites, they're able to take down another 2 members. fhtaghn now getting stunned against the wall. Quicksilver Sash not available, as he had just burned it. And Ace-202 will take home a 1v1 in a 3v1 situation. Not ideal, but at least the Master Yi died. Ace-202 now with a red buff and a Zillion to speed him forward. He's going to be chasing in onto Kaijo. Kaijo's got a lot of time to buy here, though. He's actually going to turn around. The Blade of the Rune King going to be popped. He's stunned up against the wall by a nicely placed Condemn, and it looks like Kaijo will be coming out worse for wear here as a few more crossbow bolts to the backside put him into an early shallow grave, from which I am assuming he will eventually crawl out of, most likely in about 47 seconds if I had to take a guess. But that is 300 more gold in this Vayne's pocket, and that's where Red Team needs it. I've said it before, I'll say it again, Ace-202 is the final shining light of hope for Red Team. Well, I shouldn't say final. Kale does quite a bit of late ping damage as well. Ace-202 has a lot of responsibility here, and seems to be prioritizing this blue buff pretty heavily. Perhaps too heavily, as fhtaghn is now rushing out of base. There's the spooky ghosts. Ace-202 is spooked pretty thoroughly, and Zhuang looks for a binding to follow up with. Arterail is going very aggressively here, though. He drops down the Kale ult really early, but it's worth it, as he does pick up a kill. He may be going down here. Yes, he does indeed. Vermilion Bites takes home the shutdown. But now with Ace-202 on full health but low mana, comes tumbling into the fight and goes down almost immediately to fhtaghn. fhtaghn falling, though. And that is both hyper carries from either team down. And now 1 man on the board to 2 for blue team. Vermilion Bites carrying through that fight from the backlines with repeated Qs. And the Ezreal has certainly turned on now, approaching 30 minutes into the game with 3 core items, and of course the Manamune transformed into a Muramana. Probably not the one who should be tanking the turret, though. Backs away and lets Kaijo do his job. And it looks like we're going to be seeing an inhibitor turret fall as we have a minion wave arriving. Just in time to tumble. And it tumbles itself to the ground. Kaijo and Vermilion Bites seem to be of mixed opinions here about what to do next, though. As Kaijo's leaping onto Meteor, but Vermilion Bites is backing away down the mid lane. Ezreal ulti tossed down as a afterthought of sorts. Won't be catching anyone. As Meteor gets to run away with his life, I do believe Vermilion probably could have picked up that kill, but caution is relatively warranted when the enemy team was going to be respawning in just a few short seconds. hard to definitively say which call was correct there, but in the end, it's not a super important call. It was just a difference of 1 kill on the board. More opportunistic, really, than anything else. And getting the inhibitor turret was well worth it, especially considering the pressure they already have mounting in the bottom lane with an inhibitor blown to smithereens down there. Here comes parallel convergence. Not going to catch anyone out, and actually, Zhuang a little bit itchy with the trigger finger is going to give away the game. Well, blue team is dedicated to this gambit of waiting to ambush people in that tiny little pixel bush. They finally do step out. Kaijo's flashing forward into Slaverham Lincoln, actually. The Iceborne procs are going to keep him slowed up, as well as the sapling here. Vengeful Maelstrom comes down, and a black-shielded Highlander pop. Master Yi is an unstoppable force here on the front line for blue team. Double kill for fhtaghn, and this may very well be the end of the game, ladies and gentlemen, as fhtaghn is running rampant here, chasing down at Ace202, who actually stuns him against the nub of a turret that was remaining. Meditate will not be enough, and Ace202 takes home a kill that nobody saw coming. But 4 members strong, blue team is still very happy to shove in here. Arcane shift forward, Vermilion Bites opting into the 1v1 here. Does take it home, but only just barely. Ace202 nearly took that one down as well. Meteor now diving to the back lines, gets a lot of damage down, and takes home Misty Fortune in a unassisted kill, actually. Double kill, no assists on either of them. Meteor wrecking havoc in blue team's backline as Kaijo does his best to avenge his team, but he is getting kited left and right, north and south, and up and down mid lane. It looks like he will walk away sadly from the corpses of his fallen friends. And that is not GG, thanks to a very well-timed condemn from Ace202, and a beautiful dive from Meteor, who's had a rough time of it this game. 6-8 scoreline, not ideal, but is showing up in some of these mid-game team fights, particularly that one. Dragon now live on the map is likely going to be an objective for blue team to pick up. I wouldn't be surprised if Red actually rushed it right now, but they don't have much of an opening. A few seconds at most. Echo's going down there. And it looks like their window of opportunity is closed, if it ever was even open. It was a very slim, marginal one. As Arterail does have to do some wave-clearing duties. Kaijo actually was starting off Dragon on his own. An ambitious Maokai, this one. Thinks to slay himself, one of the forest's 2 protectors. Ace202 hungers for a red blood, and he will have it. But it may be at the cost of his own life as fhtaghn comes on in. The stun against the wall is going to be cleansed off, and fhtaghn will show us why he picked up a Quicksilver Sash and bring down a kill into Ace202. When you can't condemn the Yi, there's really not much you can do about it. Especially in a 1v1 as Vayne. Not ideal. I can see the merit in the Quicksilver pickup, especially since now it does, of course, upgrade into a physical damage item. And physical damage is relatively good in Master Yi, I'd have to say. Decent, for sure. That's a Maokai signal going up into the sky. As Kaijo's teleporting in to provide tactical support for his team, zoning away, actually, quite a few members of Red. Logic's gonna be held at bay for a little bit, but he's a slippery fellow. Meteor not quite as slippery though, might be in some trouble. There's the Chrono Shift, gonna be keeping him alive as Kaijo actually zones off 3 members of Red Team. The other 2 busy in the pit are not gonna be able to stop this Dragon from going down. However, fhtaghn dropped incredibly low, both by Baron damage, pardon me, not Dragon, Baron damage, and the AoE magic damage from Logix and Slaverham Lincoln. Is going to be zoned out of the fight, but it may not even matter as Vermilion Bites is providing tons of damage of his own. Shift forward, doesn't care about picking up the Zillion Bomb. It's worth it to take home a triple kill. And a triumphantly grabbed blue buff. With almost a 10,000 gold lead, blue team will happily return to the mid lane to shove up some minions. And perhaps even take home the game. Ace202 left as the sole defender of his team's honor. And chances at victory, whichever one of those is more important. Gonna pop into the final hour, but it is way too late, ironically enough. And this inhibitor is going to be short-lived, as is the rest of this game, I fear. The next soonest respawn being Meteor in about 2 seconds, 1 second. There he is. But what can he do against this insurmountable force? fhtaghn is on the Nexus, and that is GG, folks. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode 74 of 100 Casts. If you want your own gameplay shoutcasted by me, then please do check the description. You can find an email down there to send me your replay files too. I take pretty much anything, replay.gg, op.gg, lots of different file formats. I wish I could say that I only take riots, but they don't have one. But in the end, this has been another episode of 100 Casts. I have been your commentator, fhtaghn. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.